Welcome to this presentation on the ACE General Ledger System. Now let's click on the icon. Now if you're running a system for the first time today, the system will do an auto backup. This is the password entry screen. Enter the name. The one with the greatest rights to the system is called admin. Enter the password. Now this person, admin, can create multiple users with different rights to different parts of the program. Click OK. If there's a change in the system or there's an upgrade, the system will ask whether you wish to upgrade. Just click on yes, let it do an upgrade. Next, the system shows the date of the system. Enter. Now this is the main menu on the General Ledger system. So there are 5 main sections: maintenance, under which you can create all the General Ledger account codes like departments, accounts, budget, and so on. The second one is the posting, where you can do all the posting for payment vouchers, receipts, and other type of journal postings, as well as bank reconciliation and so on. Inquiry, where you can inquire on the accounts, and also the report section that does all the reports, all the trial balance, profit and loss, balance sheets, and so on. And under the other section where you do setup for this system. So this is where you have administrative tools, for example, where you can set up different way and configure the system on how to work. And finally, the last one, you have a exit button. Now let's go into the first section, the maintenance section. Under here, the first option you have is called account groups. As you can see from here, account groups are actually the groups of General Ledger system. For example, you can segregate your accounts into fixed assets, accumulated depreciation, current assets, liabilities, income and expenditure, and so on. So you can create new groups here, as many groups as you want. The first two alphabet on the left hand side must follow the prefix groups. For example, like current assets, it has to be CA. If it's fixed asset, it has to be FA, for example. But under FA, you can create numerous subgroups, for example, FA1, FA2, and so on, if you want to segregate your fixed asset. This is how you can create your account groups. Now the second one is departments. You can actually create various departments for your expenses. For example, in this case, you may have department 1 and 2. Under each department, you may have different income and expenditure account. For example, marketing department, research and development, or maybe overseas marketing development. You can segregate these expenses into various departments on your own by creating department codes. Now the third one is to maintain accounts code. This is where you create all the individual accounts. For example, let's say you have a department 000, and let's look at one of the accounts. Let's say, for example, bank overdraft. Now you can see here, bank overdraft, let's say, belongs to current liabilities, the description, and you have to set it as debit or credit. What is a subgroup? The subgroup is when you have a linkage, for example, in fixed asset account, where you need to have a provision, an accumulated provision for account, for example. That's where I do a subcode. I will show you an example of this. Now, whether this is a bank or cash account, if it's a bank and cash account, you can actually attach that to your cash book. And you also need to input the GST code if this account involves GST as well, the tax code. Alright, so let's say in this case, let's look at another example. Let's say a fixed asset account 000. Now let's look at, for example, motor vehicles. You can see motor vehicles account. Now there is a link code. The link code, the subgroup, is for provision for depreciation under motor vehicle, where you present it on the balance sheet horizontally. So this is where you use your subgroup. And even for fixed assets, you do have tax code. For example, in this case, as TX, which is your standard input tax code, you have to put it in because this is one of the things that you buy that you may have input tax and you can claim back when you report on your GST 03 form. Now if it is an expense, let's say it falls under department 1, and let's say I have an expense code. Let's say, for example, say advertising. Okay, so as you can see, advertising, all these may incur as well a tax code. So usually we will advise you to put in your standard rated. Now that doesn't mean that all accounts, all postings, transactions into this account later on will incur TX code, because the TX code is standard input, but they may purchase advertising services from a supplier who may not be registered, in which case you can change the individual tax code for each transaction. This is just to help you to default which tax code that you should be using.
Now, the next one is budget. You can actually set budget figures for various type of accounts. For example, if you are budgeting for all your expenses and maybe income accounts, you can actually set them and create individual accounts. Let's say, for example, purchases. So let's say if you are budgeting, for example, purchases, how much do you expect to spend a month? If you're spending, say, 20,000 a month, you expect not more than that, you can actually key in the budget and then you can change. For example, maybe in the month of July, you expect it to be higher, you can key in a new figure and so on. So these figures will be used to do comparison in your reports if you set to show the budgeted figures against the actual figures. Now, customize report. Using this option, you can actually create different type of reports. For example, in this case, we have balance sheet, profit and loss, and trial balance. So let's look at a trial balance. You can see this is how we can create various reports by putting the codes, for example, and putting different totals. So with these reports, flexible reports, you can actually create your own reports once you know how to set up all these various positions and the information that you want to print in your report. So the same applies, for example, balance sheet. Let's say you have two balance sheets. Let's say the first one, you can see fixed assets, intangible assets, current assets, and so on. This is how we did for the first balance sheet, right? And look at the second balance sheet. You can see the net book value and different type of formats. Now you can set this as many types of sheets as you want. So you can actually create different types of reports using this customized report. Now, cash book, this system comes with a cash book. In other words, for all the banks and cash account, you can create a cash book account where you have got columns. In this case, for example, we do it for, say, a bank called RHB Bank. You can see this is the account number that we have selected from the system. This is on the cash and bank side. There's also columns for the payment or receipt, which you can create. For payment is up here. You can see you can set different accounts. For example, payment, you may have bank charges, general expenses, and traveling, which you use a lot. You can create them into columns. And for receipts, you may be receiving a lot of income from gross sales, for example. You can create this as your columns. So this cash book option is for you to set up how your cash book will look like with all the horizontal columns and actually print a cash book from this. Now let's go to the next section, which is posting section. For example, here we have posting for payments, receipts, other type of journals, general ledger link transfer, which is transferring figures from other subsidiary accounts system like our A status and credit system, updating of the postings, because the postings can go into a batch file first for you to check. You can have bank reconciliation, and you can also have consolidation of various accounts of general ledger. That means multiple sets. So let's look into payments.
Okay, let's look at payment posting. Select a department. Let's say it goes to a bank, for example, using bank overdraft, pay to ABC and Company. If you know the company's ROC number, key it in because this is required into your GST audit report. Details of purpose of this repairs, for example, what date is it, what is the check number that you're paying for this particular expense, what is the date, what is the invoice number of the supplier, how much is the amount that you're paying on the actual amount. Now if this supplier is charging you GST, enter the GST amount as well. So the total of the invoice is 1060 in this case. Now how do you charge this expense? For example, you charge it to repairs, so which account is that? Let's say it's under P, and let's look at repairs. Let's say replace and payment. How much is the amount that you're paying for in repairs? Now if the full amount of the repairs in this case is 1000, you can just press an enter key, or you can actually enter the amount if you want to, and then the system will ask you what is the tax code. Now this tax code is defaulted to the tax code that you set for this particular expense account. But if your supplier is not charging you GST, maybe because he's not registered, you can change this tax code to a different tax code. For example, if it's not registered, it should be under NR. You can actually change it. Okay, but in this example, we have already created and set in here as $60 on top here, which means that this person is actually registered. So let's change it back to registered code. Okay, and once it's the same code, you just select this code. The system will default the $60 to the GST account. So enter, and that's done for that particular transaction. Now, if you're paying for another invoice for the same company, of course you can carry on the next invoice. Otherwise, click a post. And then the system will actually print out the payment voucher. Right, you print out the actual payment voucher for the person to sign and so on. Now let's do another entry from bank, assuming that you're paying to a medical company. Okay, what is the bank? Let's put in the details, being a staff medical. Now what check number you're paying? What is their invoice number? Let's say if they invoice you once a month, how much is the amount they've invoiced you? Assuming they've invoiced $200 and they charge you GST of $12, goes to which department? Medical. Let's say this medical. Now you notice that let's say it's $200, so press and enter. Now you notice that the tax code says BL. Now BL means this is a input tax that you cannot claim back. That's why it went on to BL. So if it's correct, confirm this is under BL, just press enter. When you press $12, you can see under here the system will actually push the non-claimable to a GST non-claimable account, because for non-claimable input tax you would have to bear it as part of your company expense. So this is how you post for payment vouchers. Of course, you can print out a voucher, right? Close. Now under payments, you can also edit the payments. Let's say you have posted something wrong, you can go back to the journal and you can actually change it for the month. Let's say medical for the month of say November, for example. You can edit that and then you can post it back. Okay, and you can reprint the voucher. Now you also under payments, if there's something wrong, you find that it's not correct, you can actually delete the entry. You can actually delete the whole voucher, because all vouchers are posted into a batch. You can actually do a delete, closed, and if you find that you've deleted wrongly, you can actually do a recovery. Click, let's say you recover this back, and you say recover, that voucher becomes active again.
Okay, the next step is receipts. You can actually post receipts. For example, you may be receiving rentals or some other income. You can actually do a receipt. This is the same as just now we have mentioned. You have to click into which bank account. For example, you're receiving cash. You see from, let's say, Mr. Lim, being payment of rental, for example. Is your income, and you can have reference. You can have some reference, for example. If you don't have, you can just put in the amount, and then from which department this income came from and for what purpose. So it could be rental. If you have a rental account, create a rental account. If you don't have, let's say you have some other account, maybe you've received dividends and so on, you just create whichever accounts you're having and you can pick up your account itself. So how much is the amount, and you can treat it as a income. So for your receipts, same thing. You can print out an actual format of a receipt, okay, and you can also have editing of receipts. If it is wrong, you can pick up the receipt that was posted earlier and change something if you want to change it. And then post it back and reprint your receipt, an official receipt, or you can delete, for example, same thing. If it's wrong, delete, and you can recover those that is deleted, right, if you want to. The next option under posting is the others posting. Others posting meaning you can do journal postings where you know where to debit and where to credit. So let's say we post something for depreciation account. let's say we do a provision for depreciation for, let's say, motor vehicles, and you have calculated it and you want to do a posting, so you credit this provision. You can say depreciation for motor vehicle number and so on, and the next corresponding account to debit, let's say this motor vehicle belong to a certain department, so it goes under depreciation, and then you key in the same amount to debit for depreciation. So this is how you can actually do a posting for journal, where you can choose to where to debit and where to credit, nothing to do with payments. Now you can also do this. You can actually do a, for example, a posting for bank account. You can do this. Let's say it was a bank overdraft and you paid a certain amount. You can do this, crediting the bank account, being payment for what, and then you debit on the other side or whatever expenses. Now you can do this also for your payments because the debit and credit entries are valid. However, if you do your payment entries here, these entries will not appear in your cash book. You remember we have a cash book earlier, so all payments and receipts posting should be done using the option under payments and receipts here. The next option under GL-Link transfer, this is meant for transferring from our ACE subsidiary systems like creditors and debtors. So these transfers can be done on daily basis or monthly basis as you wish, and the figures are picked up from the subsidiary accounts. Now the update, whatever journals you've posted earlier, you have to update, otherwise they remain in the batch file for you to edit and so on. So let's do an update. For example, these were the entries that we did earlier, and we say update all yes, and the system will update them into transactions for you into the general ledger system. And you can also print a journal if you want to on the results of your update. Now bank reconciliation, you can do bank reconciliation. Let's say you choose a bank account, for example the bank account. Now this is how you do reconciliation. We look at the statements on one hand and the ledger from computer, and you're supposed to tick which are the ones that were actually cleared or uncleared. Alright, you can do this, cleared or uncleared, confirm, and then a reconciliation will come out. You can also add in, for example, maybe an additional transaction that didn't come out, and what is the check number and so on. You can actually type that. Was it the receipt or was it the withdrawal? Let's say it was a receipt that was not cleared. What was the amount? And you can save that and add that as an additional amount under your reconciliation, and you will show up in your reconciliation report. Now consolidation is only used when you have got various general ledger systems for multiple companies, for example subsidiary companies, and you want to combine them into one. Otherwise this is not used at all. Now let's look at the next section, which is inquiry on accounts. Select any account that you want. Let's say Department 0. Let's look at the bank account. You can see all the transactions you posted earlier will be shown here. And you can choose, select which transaction, press and enter, and you will show you the full details of that journal that the posting came from. So you can select any other account that you like from here using the same basis, any account at all, and show you all the postings. So this is the inquiry option. Let's have a look at the report section. You can see you have a batch file. If you have postings inside the batch file which have not updated, you can actually print it in a report form for payment postings, for receipt postings, and for other postings. So if you have any transactions left in there, you can actually do a preview, select the date and so on, and actually print if you have got transactions left in there. Now transactions, you can actually list out all the type of transaction that came from general ledger or from debtors transfer or creditors transfer or all, and you can see those transactions that were actually posted inside. So it could be all the accounts, it could be by range of dates and so on. You can see this is for you to counter check your postings that you have already been updated. Now the batch transactions shown earlier is for transactions not updated. Transactions report is for transactions that has already been updated. Now the cash book, you can select for which month, which bank, and you can actually view the cash book. You remember the cash book columns that we created earlier? You can actually create this. So you can print this report with the various columns, for example, here showing income and here showing all the various expenses, the common expenses that you have with details of the checks and so on and the amount. So this is a cash book report. Now we have a chart of accounts. A chart of accounts is how your accounts will set up inside the system. What are the various accounts that you have in the system? This is called chart of accounts. You can see here, you can give you full details of all the accounts. And you can see that we have got departments 0, 1, and 2 and so on. So every department has its own account for cleaning and maintenance in this case, or commission, depreciation, and so on. That's how you can obtain individual profit and loss or income and expenditure for each department. The current ledger report gives you the option to choose any specific account or any specific department and which account do you want to check the postings on. So let's look at, for example, bank overdraft. You can print the report onto select the printer. You can see here it shows you the current ledger, which is the brought forward balance plus all the transactions to give you the final closing balance. So you can do this general ledger for all departments or all accounts if you want to, and you can see all the postings for the month, the individual ledger for individual accounts. The next report, the budget report, shows you the budgeted figures that you have set for the various accounts. In this case, for example, purchase account, the total amount of budgeted expenses for January, February, and so on, month by month. So this is a listing of all budgets that you have set for you to counter check. The trial balance, very important. You can select which period that you want to print and so on, and you can have standardized or customized if you have created some special report format on your own. Otherwise, let's say we use standard, and you can list out the trial balance. You can see this month, this year, debit and credit and so on. Every figure is inside here with the final balance figures. This is a trial balance report. Now, profit and loss report, if you're using standardized, again, you can see all your income and expenditure, profit and loss accounts inside here. Sales, gross profit, expenditure, and then finally net profit before tax. Balance sheet, print balance sheet, fixed assets, intangible assets, current assets, current liabilities, working capital, and final balance sheet total compared to your funds. Now all these final accounts reports are already in the system. Now the year ledger report shows for individual accounts the full year's transactions. For example, let's choose one account. Let's look at bank. The whole year, it's not just for the current month. The current ledger previously I shown you will show for current month. This will show you for the entire year's transactions. So for audit purposes, the year ledger would be a more detailed ledger listing of all the postings done for individual accounts. Bank reconciliation. If you have done any bank reconciliation, you can actually print out the bank reconciliation. It will show you all the reconciliation, balance as per cash account, less any deposit in transit, unpresented checks, other receipts, unpresented receipts, and so on, and balance it with your bank statement. This is the bank reconciliation report. Now the rest of the reports, for example, account listing, is just for you to see how do you set up your various accounts groups. Like for example, CA, you have current assets, you have other assets under current assets, you put CA-1, and so on. This is for you to counter check the settings you have done. Voucher listing, You can print out the various vouchers, the list of all the various vouchers, listing whether it's updated or not. Right, all the payment vouchers will be listed here. You can choose only payment vouchers, or you can choose, for example, only official receipts. Remember, the official receipts are also issued from the system. We have documents printing. For example, this is the actual voucher. Let's choose a range. Remember the vouchers that we posted. So you will print out in this form. Go on to the next voucher, and to the next voucher, and so on. You can see this is a voucher format, the details, the payment for what is the check numbers, and the bills of the suppliers, and at the bottom they would have to sign to acknowledge receipts. Now, Operation Audit Trail is a audit trail of who did what in the system. You will go by date. This is an example. Who was the user on what date, what time, which user did all these editing or updating or creating chart of account and so on. So this is the name of the user that did the task. So you can actually use this trace back. If you found that you want to know who did certain type of vouchers and so on, you can actually do this. For example, in this case, payment voucher on this date, what was the numbers and done by whom.
Now the last report is a GST report, which is actually a report on the GAF, which is GST audit file, which is required by the Customs Department. So you can choose range of date to print in this case. So let's do a preview. Enter. You can see this is the format of the GAF report. Now the Customs Department does not require you to present a report, but if they ask you for a GST audit file, they want the file in soft form. In other words, in the file form where they can actually access it using their own software. But the contents inside this GST audit file will be indication of purchases. For example, in this case, from a general ledger, what sort of purchase transaction do you post, which will incur the input tax. So TX tax, NR, non-registered, and so on. Okay. And the other part will be the general ledger. You can see at the bottom here, the ledger entries are all extracted into this GF file or report as well. And at the end of the report, we give you an analysis of the various purchases under different tax codes. So you're able to get the different amount incurred under different tax code. Now this report, you can also specifically choose only certain types of tax code. For example, if you want to choose only T, for example, you can say, okay, I want only this tax code and any other tax code that I have, for example, ZRE that I have inside the sales and so on. You can actually do a report that way as well. You can select and you can choose whether to print the ledger or not in your GAF report.
Let's look at the other section. Under here, you have data sorting. This is to sort out the data in case your data gets a little messy. You want to clear off and purge those records that you deleted. You can do a sort. There are administrative tools for you to do system setup. For example, the name of a company, addresses, whether you're going to print certain documents, what sort of last document number you have, and so on. There are a lot of settings here. You can also export the data from the general ledger system to a tab delimited file, which can be picked up by Excel. In other words, you can export the information from the general ledger system to a format that the Excel can use, and from Excel you can create your own pie charts or whatever charts that you want. You can lock the screen. For example, you want to go away from your PC terminal, you don't want anybody to touch whatever you're doing. When you come back, you can unlock using your code and you're back to where you are. You can change, for example, today's date. Now this date is only allowed normally for the admin, the user admin, to change. And finally, you can exit the system. Now this is the end of the presentation on the ACE General Ledger System. Thank you for watching.
Now, before we officially end this presentation, we would like to bring to your notice that if you are using our ACE General Ledger system, you can actually use our GST system as well. This will do the complete GST reporting. Let's enter into the GST system. Now, inside this GST system, we allow you to actually maintain all the purchase input tax code, for example, following whatever the customs want. This is inside here. And you can also actually do the output tax codes. You can see your different type of tax code. You can even create your own tax code if you want to, which is allowed under the customs rulings if you need to use different tax code other than whatever they've recommended. And inside this system, once you have created all the tax code, the system will extract all the data necessary from the ACE General Ledger system to actually produce the GST 03 form. For example, if I'm reporting, let's say for November, all right, and I do a print, you can actually see the whole GST 03 form is extracted directly from this GST system. So the total value of standard rated supply which you have done to your customers, for example, how much is the amount that you have done in terms of sales, these figures are extracted directly from the ACE General Ledger system. We also have the total amount of the output tax you have collected, which is automatically extracted here. And then when you go on to the next page, the total input tax based on the purchases that you've done, again this figure is extracted from the ACE General Ledger system, and the total input tax. And then the difference of either you pay the government for the output tax amount or you claim back the extra input tax. In this case, this is an extra input tax or the output tax. And also various sales figure like total value of zero rated supplies, export supplies, exempt supplies, and so on. And if you did buy, for example, capital goods, fixed asset, for example, motor vehicles or office equipment and so on, the amount of figures all extracted from the ACE General Ledger system. So with the ACE General Ledger system, you can actually combine with this GST reporting system to print out this whole form and for submission to the tax department. And also, the tax department, you can actually submit the GST 03 form online, so using a TAP file. So a TAP file will also be created for you by the system. For you to do submission, you can actually create a TAP file and the system will just run and create the file for you, and then you can just use an online submission to the tax department. And of course, inside here we have the combination of all. If you're using some of our ACE system but not all, then this GAF report will combine all the various reports from the various modules of system that you have. Now you also have a tax code analysis report, where we actually extract all the figures by tax code. You can see here different types of tax code for purchase and then for supply and so on.